Good afternoon. This is Clark Neighbors with BIS Commodities in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, for the market update for the last day of February 2015. Month of February may go down as a month known for its strikes and cold weather. Some of the coldest weather of the winter has been in the last week. Minus 18 here in Cedar Rapids this morning, for example. Before we go any further, let's just kind of update where we are for the week and for the month. On the soybeans for the week, May beans gained 30 cents. November soybeans were up roughly 16 cents. Corn, May down 2. Wheat, they were up about 4 cents on the wheat. U.S. dollar index was up almost a full point, and crude oil down $1.50. Now for the month of February, beans have had a pretty good little run. May beans are up 63 cents for this month. November up 50. Corn, you're basically 13 to 15 higher in corn. The crude about unchanged for the month. The dollar about unchanged for the month. So some pretty impressive moves this week. Again, getting back to the strikes and the cold weather. First on the strikes, the initial one to talk about is dock worker strike on the West Coast. That has been resolved, but still has some lingering issues going forward. Most of that has had some impact on container movement, which has had probably the biggest impact, at least in the ag sector, with meat shipments overseas and also imported beef, maybe from Australia. But it's also had some impact on the grains with some of the container market, DDGs, for example, moving through those West Coast ports. The other strike, so to speak, to keep in mind is one that kind of stirred its ugly head this week, is the trucker strike in Brazil. And it seems like on a daily basis here, talking about how many road blockages they may have, how much impact that's had on moving some of the supply to the market, etc. Brazil continues to have many political issues, not only with that, but with the government and the petroleum arm, Petrobras, and with the falling energy prices. They haven't really seen that petroleum price come down like we have in a lot of the rest of the world. They're going to have an increase, from what I understand, in ethanol, which could have some impact on their ethanol stocks, which could be longer term a benefactory here to the U.S., to the ethanol industry going long term, but we'll see how that plays out. But this strike this week, though, has had some positive impact on the soybean market, because between Brazil and Argentina and the political problems and logistical problems, there is some talk in the market about China maybe continuing movement of U.S. product, both soybeans and meal, here in the near term. The spreads are reacting that way in the soybeans. If you notice the lack of carry and the inversion as you go to new crop. And it all rests on, you got a 5.6 billion bushel bean crop in Brazil and Argentina alone, over 6 billion for the entire continent, and that huge supply, biggest carryout we've ever had in the world, and yet we have very little carrying charge in this market. So this schizophrenic soybean market, along with a technical trade that looks pretty solid, with today having its highest close going back to January 9th, which is before the January crop report. Pretty impressive. So moving forward, it's going to be interesting to watch the beans, both from a technical standpoint and also a fundamental standpoint. Most in the marketplace are assured, because of this huge supply, that the bean market needs to go lower. But at the same point, the market seems to be becoming impatient, waiting for that to happen. Corn is a follower right now, fairly neutral type market, both technically, not a lot of news fundamentally this time of year. So going forward, the biggest thing in the corn market is the March 31st stocks report, along with the the planting intentions report Excuse me. So that's going to be key. Basis continues to be pretty solid, but we have very wide carries in the corn market right now, especially due to lack of deliveries, due to a lukewarm export market right now. So going forward, the corn market needs something to happen, movement, something to change dramatically to get this market to react. The cold weather has had some impact also, more short-term logistically. Obviously, truck movement in certain markets. It is having some slowing impact at this point on some river movement, say St. Louis and north. Going into next week, it looks like another cold, snowy winter-like week. It may continue to keep that impact kind of slow, so basis levels, at least short-term, presumably will stay fairly solid, assuming these logistical issues still exist. So moving forward again for the month of March, we'll see if funds want to get the funds want to participate in this market. It looks like they did in February, number one. Number two, movement, producer movement, along with the demand structure on how we see basis respond to that lack of movement, assuming that continues to exist. And obviously the March 31st report. So keep in mind of that going forward. Again, cold weather and strikes are the story of the day. And believe it or not, baseball season is only 35 days away. This has been Clark Neighbors with BIS Commodities in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. If you have any questions, call us at 1-800-373-2525 or biscommodities.com. Have a great weekend.